Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Pan Future Podcast. Today is Saturday, December 2nd, 2017. Well, I'm not really going to talk about the very recent news that's been going on in the United States here. It's very, very frustrating. It's going to take some time to sort out what our government has just done here and the complete lack of actual democracy. How can you pass a bill with 500 pages of new amendments, some written in hand without even reading them? Democracy is eroding here, and I'm going to do my best to just carry on. So, to keep me from babbling on and on and on and on, let's get to the news of the moment. Researchers have run an experiment that has produced spider silk that could perhaps hold a human. The silk spun by spiders is very strong, light, and flexible. However, getting it produced in large enough quantities to actually use on a more widespread basis is very difficult. However, researchers in Italy and the UK have incorporated carbon nanotubes into the spider silk material, and this composite material is 5 times stronger than the natural spider silk, which is already itself very strong. But perhaps the most interesting thing is that the spider itself has produced this enhanced web material. Scientists led by Nicola Pugno at Italy's University of Trento have combined the spider silk with graphene and carbon nanotubes by letting the spider drink the stuff in some water. They just put the graphene and the nanotubes in the water. Spider drinks it up, and it is incorporated into the spider silk material. Now, they knew that this was possibly going to work because spider silk, under examination, does incorporate minerals and other biominerals within the protein structures of the material. So this wasn't a total stab in the dark. And although this is at a very small proof of concept scale, it would hopefully lead to some greater enhanced use in the future, and could possibly lead us down a path of some new materials in the future, of biomaterials, combining the properties of various plants and animals along with some synthetic materials to allow us to produce the sorts of things that we need to build better spaceships or a space elevator or something like that. So very interesting research there. Keep your eyes out to see if they can scale that up and make something practical out of it. And now,
it came from outer space.
In space news this week, the first item I want to briefly mention, again, the interstellar asteroid, which I did mention, I think, a week or two ago. It kind of got weirder. The fact that it sped through our solar system at a high rate and was detected at all is remarkable. However, I'm going to have some links in the show notes. You should go check out the more recent news about this. They've compiled and released some new data about the shape of the object, and it is a very unusual shape. It is a long, kind of slender tube-like thing. In my sci-fi imagination, I'm thinking that this is like the shard of a shattered planet or something like that. It's very interesting. So click on those links and read up more on that. The other space news I wanted to swing by you this week is for the first time in 37 years, Voyager 1 has fired some thrusters. There are other thrusters that maintain the craft's attitude to point the radio antenna toward Earth, and they've been wearing out and degrading a little bit. So NASA fired up some other thrusters to make some minor adjustments in the craft's orientation. And after 37 years, they fired right up. So again, a remarkable engineering feat that NASA, whatever else you think of what NASA does, man, they can build space probes and small robotic craft like this. That's incredible. After 37 years, I think NASA should start building cars. Huh? How about that? So Voyager 1 is also currently traveling about 40,000 miles an hour and is 13 billion miles away from our planet, and passed through into interstellar space back in 2012. It still sends data back to Earth. It takes about 19 hours to get it here. This data will continue until, unfortunately, 2025, when the radioisotope thermoelectric generators cease to provide enough power to run any instruments. So after that, it will just be a silent traveler in the void. For the main segment of the show this week, I'm going to do something a little bit different. As the show continues to evolve and my view on things continues to evolve, I'm going to be doing a few more sort of philosophical type shows, giving you sort of an essay that I've written, sharing views on various topics. Hopefully aim to improving people's long-term thinking and giving you different perspective on things and connecting a few dots that maybe you don't think are necessarily connected. I'm going to share with you an essay that I published in 2011 on my personal blog, and the first draft of this goes all the way back to, I think, 2003. While the content is more about my personal career and financial situation, I think it can offer a snapshot of a career being affected by technology and by the way the world, at least in America, just is. I think heading into the middle of the 21st century, many more people will go through what I have in all career paths and all class positions. Will technology replace you, or at least create such a glut of production, a lack of scarcity, that few people are needed, or the market for your job is oversaturated? Also, despite the nearly 15 years since the first draft, my income hasn't really changed, and the numbers I presented in 2011 are still pretty much the same. This essay is entitled Dispatches from the Gray Collar, 2011. Years ago, I wrote an essay that I never published, probably about 10 years ago, but I'm not going to go dig up the original. This was in the days before blogs, so I didn't really have an outlet for it anyway. I titled it The Gray Collar. It was an attempt at the time to figure out where I fit in America's class structure. I knew I wasn't a white collar, yet I did not feel blue collar either. These years later, as I watch the current events in my home state of Wisconsin, I can't say that anything has changed for me. I'm really no better off than I was, and I still don't know where people like me fit in. Collars in general refer more to the type of work you do, not directly to the money that you make, although the two are usually connected. Wikipedia has a number of entries on classes, including the gray collar. I didn't even know that was a real thing when I titled my essay. Just seemed like a fitting color for what I thought I was doing. There are several definitions, but one list includes skilled trades and technicians. I guess that's pretty much what I do. I can call myself gray collar. It's a decent catch-all for those not white or blue collar. There are also green, pink, and gold collar workers. I'm not any of those either. I am college educated, technically skilled with my musical instrument, and a knowledgeable specialist in the software I use, but except for hauling gear and the occasional 3-hour gig, I don't work a physically demanding job. Another element of class definitions is based on how much money you make. From 2006 to 2010, I had a regular job in an office with good benefits. For 7 years before that, I was mostly self-employed and part-time. I am fully self-employed again, and I can't ever picture myself not being self-employed. So let's call that 4 years with built-in benefits an anomaly. As a contractor, I currently average about $30,000 per year. I say average with a caveat. Being a contractor in the music industry leaves you open to wild swings. I've seen as little as $20,000 and as much as $40,000. There's no predictability here. One of the biggest hurdles in my profession is that there's no built-in increase of pay over time. There's no raise for what I do. There's no growth, no moving up the ladder, as there are in most jobs. Gradually, over time, rates for private lessons, hourly rates for music engraving, or charges for artwork and the like can go up. But I have to stay competitive with everyone else out there. I can't really predict any regular increase in my income. The only real way I can make more money is to work more. Yeah, me and what time machine are going to find the hours for that? Okay, I can find some time, but I can't squeeze more out of the same client. I could teach private lessons again, but I can attest to the burnout one gets from doing that full-time. And let me insert a 2017 tidbit of information here. Guitar lessons, there is a serious glut, and you can teach yourself anything on YouTube. So at least for guitar teachers, that is a tough row to hoe. Back to 2011. It's like a second shift babysitting job, 45 kids a week, one at a time. More work as a contractor is not like getting more hours at a regular job. It's more like getting a second or third or fourth job. And that $30,000 isn't far off from what I was making 10 years ago. The arts are hurting and have been for years. Another reason growth is slow if it's there at all. That much income is decent for an unmarried guy with no kids, and I got by okay back then. I am happily attached now and can still get by, but only reasonably comfortable. That's it. That's all I can ever see doing. It gets really tricky when I try to think of how I'm going to manage retirement. That might not be in the cards for me. By various definitions, that pay level makes me working class, just barely below middle class, depending on what definitions you're looking at. As the numbers break down, the median income of a male over 25 with a bachelor's degree is over $52,000 a year. Glad to do my part to drag those numbers down. Ha ha ha. If I didn't laugh, I'd cry. Maybe I should have picked a different major in college. I followed my dreams. Sorry, Mom and Dad, but in hindsight, maybe you should have encouraged me to be practical instead. I love my parents, but they encouraged me to follow my dreams. I'll never even come close to making the money that they did. I want to be clear on this. I love music and art, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I've been an office drone and a warehouse 9-to-5 guy. There's no joy for me there, just a paycheck. And sometimes those jobs can be such a drag I don't have the energy for the things I really like to do. The idea of getting a haircut and getting a quote-unquote real job makes me cringe. Sometimes I wish it could be easier. Punch out and go home, leave the work at work. I just don't seem to be wired that way. But don't you dare call me lazy. That is not how music is. I am on 24/7, whether it's practicing, writing down an idea that popped into my head, or schlepping an hour each way to play in a pit band. 9 to 5, Monday through Friday does not exist in my world. You might see a CD for $10 and think it isn't worth it. I see the hundreds of hours that went into making it. Perhaps I can leave you with this friendly reminder that art isn't a career for the lucky. I have the skill because I have worked my ass off, and I make your world a little less dark whether you realize it or not. And this gray collar seems to fit just fine. So those are some thoughts on my career as a musician. I still think pretty much the same way now in 2017 as I did 6 years ago after publishing that. Does any of that ring true for you? Whatever you do, are your wages stagnant? Is there opportunity for growth? Can you live a decent life? And perhaps most importantly, are you fulfilled by what you spend so much time, so many days and years of your life doing? And that is a question that we as individuals have to answer, and we as a society have to answer for the long-term health of humanity, of the ideas of civilization. Do we value the things that don't merely produce profit for shareholders? I have said a number of times on the show, STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, makes the world that we live in. That's one of the reasons I do this show, is to support STEM. And I love that stuff, or I wouldn't be here talking to you. But people need to be reminded constantly, I think, that the arts make that world worth living in. Whether it's taking a break from the day-to-day grind, or sharing something fun with other people, or just developing a sense of artistic appreciation, which can also develop your appreciation for the intricacies of a blood cell or the wonders of the night sky. All of those things make civilization possible. And all of them should be preserved and valued. And it's been a while since I think the arts have truly been valued, and the people that create the arts have been valued as components of our civilization. And as automation grows and productivity continues to increase and technology changes the way we do things, it is possible that every job will follow the same path that music has. And if your self-worth is tied up in what you do, there might be a time not too far down the road where no one values what you do. And I think that's tragic, and I don't think that's something we're dealing with. Alvin Toffler talked about it in Future Shock, 45 years ago. The technology we're changing and the science is changing, but the civilization and the society, we're not dealing with that side of it, and we need to seriously do that. Last week, over the holidays, my mother was visiting, and we were talking about some of these sort of big picture things, and she said something very profound and succinct that I want to share with you too. She said, civilization is a thin veneer. And it is. Everything going on, and I'm sure I'll get more into the state of the world in other shows. We're at some kind of turning point. I really believe that. And the things we do today and tomorrow and the next day are going to lay the foundation for the kind of civilization we have 100 or 500 years from now. So think about that. Think about your job. Think about what you do. Think about what you do for the world. Think about how the world views you. Just give it some thought for now. And if it's something you've never thought about before, and see how it feels. All right, that's the show. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for listening. I hope you got all the way through that. I appreciate your attention when I get a little more personal here. So do go to the website, panfuture.org. You can check the links to the news items, and find me on Facebook and Twitter. Drop me a message. Let me know what you think. What do you do for a job? Do you feel valued as a member of this earthly civilization? And I will talk to you again in the future.